Hi, friend. Welcome here inside of our first official module together as we get ready to talk about the longevity revolution. Why this is the future of health. It is the paradigm shift that needs leaders just like you. So let's go ahead and begin to understand the landscape because something very amazing has happened literally about the past 5 to 7 years. And that is that longevity has become the fastest growing industry globally. Right now, it's topping out at about $5 trillion. And it's really fascinating because this industry isn't being publicly funded by the government and by the pharmaceutical companies. It is being funded by the private sector, by the venture capitalist firms, by research, by biotech, by, by so many amazing startups that are seeing, wait a minute, there's a change on the horizon. There's a change in the population. There's a change in how we're living. There's a change in the consumer trends and ideas and desires. And the way that we've been doing things aren't serving us. We're living longer, but not better. Could there be a better way? And so, I think that's what's beautiful about entrepreneurs. They're always kind of looking from different angles to see the opportunity in the marketplace. So they've been ahead of this. And I've been in this space, back probably 7 years ago, we started the Longevity Summit. This has been growing and growing and growing, and it is not slowing down. And so I want you to feel really excited. Hopefully, this is confirmation that you're landing in the right place. And because of this, because of the funding that's coming into this, we are at a paradigm shift in healthcare, which I'm going to explain in just a moment. And it is inviting each of us as doctors, as coaches, clinicians, practitioners to show up differently, to show up in a way that we actually can meet our clients where they're at on this client centered journey, have the tools, the resources to support them, not just to treat and manage sickness and symptoms, to truly extend how long and how well they're living. So, why does this matter? Well, the way that the traditional healthcare model has been set up, that we've all actually kind of been taught and that we're marketed to every day, is really what happens on the left side of this continuum. So if you're in health, you understand that kind of the true north point that we've always been told about is that the body is constantly striving to maintain what's referred to as homeostasis. So think of homeostasis as the balance point, the equilibrium, not too much, not too little, but we're just kind of pulsing. And I'm going to use, as you can look at my hands for a moment, if you're able to see this, I'm going to refer to this often throughout this course because I want you to start to understand that none of this is linear. The human body is not pieces and parts, and healthcare and even lifespan is not just one straight line. So start to think of this as a living, breathing, three-dimensional, full 360 kind of spectrum. So balance is right here. We're just kind of pulsing in the center. But what happens over time, and we're going to talk about why this happens here in just a moment, we start to lose balance. So we start to go to the left side of this continuum, don't we? We start to things start to change. We start to feel off. We start to feel tired. We're not as fast. We're not as quick. We're not as responsive. We have more aches. We have more pains. The symptoms are the body's way of communicating. It's simply telling us, hey, it's kind of like the warning light on the car. The red light's going on saying, hey, a little problem here. We need a little tune up. We need a little oil change. Things are off. But often in today's modern society, we just ignore it. We put tape over it. We're taking some aspirin. We're down in energy drinks. We're pushing the envelope in every way. And we, even healthcare providers, we forget that those early warning signs are the body just saying, hey, I need a little support. I need a little care. Give me back what I need. Because the quicker that we do that, we get it back to homeostasis. But the way the society has been taught is we've been conditioned to look out for problems. And if there's a problem, we're going to take pill, pill to manage the problem or to silence the problem and not necessarily to correct it. So we think we just put tape over it and it goes away, but it doesn't, does it? So it continues to become more out of balance. And then the imbalance starts to lead to a loss of function. Loss of function leads to breakdown, breakdown to dysfunction, dysfunction to disease. And so, what we have learned to do as healthcare practitioners is to treat the signs, the symptoms, and the breakdown. We think that people are broken. We think our job is to fix the brokenness, the problem. But what if I were to tell you that none of us are broken? Again, remember, our center point is homeostasis. And so all that this is, that first word unbalanced, is it's a progression of the body becoming more and more and more out of balance, not getting enough of what it does need to keep up with the demands of life, and getting too much of what it doesn't need that's depleting it. And so when we have less gas in the tank, we can't go as fast, as far, as efficiently as well. And so, as providers, we've been taught in this allopathic model to treat with pills, with therapies, with modalities to treat the problem. And so, when we start to mitigate the symptoms, they start to subside. Even in a functional model, we go to the root cause, we maybe at best get them back to homeostasis, which we think then we've done our job. We all think that health is the absence of disease, the absence of symptoms, but it's not. Symptoms are really the first thing to go. Like, that doesn't mean that health has been actualized. And so when we get back to homeostasis, here's the deal. Look at all this potential. This whole right side of the continuum is pure potential that is not being it's not being addressed with our clients. It's not being supported with our clients. It's not being supported by us as practitioners to have additional revenue models, scaling models, right? Opportunity exists. And that's really what I like to say is where sick care ends is where longevity care begins. So in our minds, if we think, well, I do sick care really well, and here's the deal, my friends, we do have a lot of sick people. So I'm not gaslighting us. I'm not dismissing that. We do need to take care of our people, right? We're at a tipping point of need. 71% of Americans have one or more chronic disease, and this is really significant. 121 million have heart disease. It's the number one killer. But look at the next three. 96 million are pre-diabetic. 37 million are diabetic, 39 million have kidney disease. Those three numbers all work together. And those three together actually create the perfect storm for heart disease. So that whole top line really is all the same thing. It's all metabolic. And we're going to talk a lot about metabolics. We're going to talk a lot about this rate and pace of aging and how it's driven from upstream, things that are happening in our outer world, how it's really informing and influencing and driving these metabolic pathways, these hormones, these signaling agents that are either helping us to age beautifully and slowly or accelerating us into breakdown and disease. 57 million Americans have mental health issues. 83% of us say we're stressed. 67% of us say we're burnout. 50 million have autoimmune. And the reality is, these people are your clients. They might even be you. And it's okay. It's not okay, but it's okay. Meaning we get to meet ourselves where we're at without shaming or blaming. This is part of the process. But remember, this is just one side of the continuum. And what's beautiful is there's so much more opportunity. Now, let me explain this. So, yes, we're dealing with these diseases. Yes, we find ourselves at a time where we are living longer. We're going to break these terms down in just a moment. We can see by the numbers that we just looked at, longer but not better, because 45% of everybody over 18, so we just said 71% of Americans have a chronic, one or more chronic disease. But by the time we're 18, 45% of Americans have one or more chronic disease. Okay. 78% by the time they're 55 have one chronic disease, but 90%, and this is significant, 90% of adults 65 and older have at least two chronic conditions. Why does this matter? Okay, let's break it down. Currently, with kind of managing sickness, with just staying on that left side of that continuum, there's a real cost. And the current model is going like, we have a broken system. We got to fight against the system. How dare the system? High cost. They're not going down. Well, that's true. Costs 3.8 trillion just to manage sickness every year. And if we're living longer but not better, that could become a real problem because the current cost is about 20% of the gross national product annually. So what we are seeing is that we have a certain lifespan. We're going to break these numbers down here in just a moment so you can start to get really comfortable and familiar with the terminology. So lifespan is the number of years we are alive, right? And Health span, on the other hand, is the number of years that we are alive free of sickness and disease. The number of years that we are alive healthy. Healthy. So if by time we are 65, 90% of Americans have two or more chronic conditions. And we know that all chronic disease correlates with aging. We're going to talk about that here again more in just a moment. We're just kind of building the story right now, just so you guys know. We're going to go deep over lesson over lesson over lesson. So, right now, I just want you to feel comfortable with the landscape, understanding where we're at and the opportunities ahead of where we get to go. So, the current situation is that we have at least the last decade of our life that we are in breakdown, dysfunction, disease. We're living on medications. We're living with a lack of quality of life and life experience. We're not contributing. We are a drain on the economy. And none of us want to be a drain. None of us look forward to getting older when we think that everything we see is breakdown, dysfunction, disease, being in a home, losing our memories. There's nothing exciting about, right? You might be sitting here going, Melissa, like, why is the longevity economy like taken off? Because most of the people I know don't want to, they don't even want to live a long time because the idea of when people are in their 70s, they're almost out the door and they're living with all of these issues. It's a pretty sad visual that we're all getting when we look at our parents and we look at our grandparents and we even look at our kids, right? Like, so we're sitting here in this midway point, kind of going, it's bad on both sides. Like, this is not getting any better. But what if we ask different questions? So, one of the things that made functional medicine so profound is they started to say, instead of just treating a problem, why don't we ask what's causing the problem? Right? Like current healthcare just goes, oh, you got to sign a symptom, let's give you a pill. We're gonna give you a pill. But functional medicine started to say, but why? Before we give you a pill, why? Why is this actually happening? Let's see if we can get more pieces to the puzzle and better understand it. So maybe we don't have to have as many medications. Maybe there's some things that we can do a little smarter, do a little less of, do a little more of, and we can actually reduce some of these symptoms and get you back on the way to homeostasis and to healing, right? So functional medicine is kind of the first better place in the integrative health landscape to get us out of just managing problems, getting us to this idea of root cause. So we're getting to say, how do we start to close this morbidity gap and reduce the rate and pace of aging? Okay, so that's a first good question. But is there an even better question? Is there an even better question? And let me explain. If we look at the numbers right now, the fear is, okay, we have a last decade of our life that we are in dysfunction and disease, two or more chronic diseases. Disease care is costing us 3.8 trillion a year, and that's pretty expensive. Oh, but wait a minute. By 2030, one in every six people are going to be 60 and older. And if we know by time we're 65 and older, we have at least two diseases, and every disease costs more and more and more money, we could have a global economic collapse. The silver tsunami is coming. So if we come from a standpoint of fear, of beating the drum of the problem, sick care is broken, it's expensive, and there's got to be a better way. Well, yes, there is.